I think a lot of people would agree that one of the biggest challenges of being new to piano is trying to learn to play something with both hands at the same time. I've got 2 key practice methods for you in this video, as well as lots of other important tips to help you through this process. I know this can feel really tough sometimes, or even impossible, but like anything, when you tackle it the right way and you have a solid practice method, then with enough experience, this stuff really does start to click and feel easier. You'll realize you can actually play things that you thought you couldn't. Okay, so before you can play both hands together, in most cases, you need to check that you can play each hand solidly first. Otherwise, it's going to be much harder to get our hands together. This is commonly where beginners can go wrong. They often rush to the next step before they're really ready, and that can stop you making any progress. Now, I don't mean the whole piece. We can do this section by section. Of course, we've got to really know what we're playing in each hand, learn all the notes confidently. We can't be pausing and hesitating over where we're going to go next. We must have the fingerings rehearsed too, be repeating the same fingers, or that's going to lead to mistakes. And we just want to have the basic technique and the movement and things like that, be able to control what we're playing to like a workable level before we try and put our hands together. If it's still feeling difficult to play something in one of your hands, then there's just no point in rushing to the next step. Now, some kind of patterns and things that you play are a bit easier to learn hands together, so you have to use your judgment a bit here, but even then you still really need to be confident about the fingers and the positions you're going to use. Now, this is another common mistake that beginners make before they even really start, and it's something crucial that you've got to have in place. You really must understand what you're trying to play, make sense of how your hands are meant to fit together, what you're aiming for, and actually keep that in mind when you're trying to play it. So when the left hand plays on its own, when the right hand plays on its own, and when the notes in each hand line up together, think of it like you have to have a really clear mental picture of what you're meant to play, which notes go where, before you can play it. If you're reading the music you want to play, take advantage of that, really study it, because you can see on that as a picture exactly where the hands meet and when they play by themselves. And again, don't try and do the whole thing in one go. It works best to tackle one manageable section at a time. So we're really trying to understand the rhythm of how the patterns fit together, and counting is an important part of that. We don't need to count as we play at first, but understanding which notes land on the beat, or which notes land perhaps on the ands in between the beat. That's going to help you gain a clear picture in your mind of where everything should fit. Okay, so on to the first main practice method. And I think this is a really powerful way to practice for beginners, as well as more advanced people too. I still use this practice method when I'm trying to figure out how to play something that's a challenge for me. And all you have to do is practice and figure out really small bite-sized sections, even note by note sometimes if you have to, because that way every little step you take is easy. You get that confident, and then you just add on one more easy step. And before you know it, once you've rehearsed the whole thing, you're playing something that feels a lot more complicated, but you've just thought of it as loads of little easy steps. It's about just practicing everything you need to complete just one maneuver, one step at a time, and that makes it manageable, as having too much on your plate is where people go wrong. There's a few particular things which make playing hands together difficult, and this tackles them. Remembering what to play and the fingers in both hands at the same time. Really importantly too, getting the hand coordination, getting the hands to move in different directions at the same time, and controlling different fingers on each hand at the same time. So to break that down, hands just go together to start with. That's straightforward. Then you just think, okay, just need to add on one more thing. Then the thumb. Okay, if I can do that, then I can add on one more note. That's not so bad either. Then the next note is where we're going to make a conscious marker where the notes line up. And we're going to think about the direction our hand moves here. So both hands are going to move this way. Each one just moves up to the next white key. Pay attention to which notes connect. Rehearse that little bit confidently before you move on. When it's confident, now we just need to add one right hand note on. So you've got something together that you know, and we're just adding one new thing. The right hand just carries on up for one more note. Next, two notes line up together again, and we're going to think about our hands moving this way. Make sure that you go as slowly as you need to get this. If you can get to that point confidently, then it's just two notes in the thumb to add on. You could now separate the next part into a new kind of section to practice. This starts hands together, which is just one simple thing to do. And all you do from there is, you've practiced this right hand part by itself by now, so you just don't let go of this note whilst your hand runs up until the top. Now at this point, our right hand goes up whilst our left hand goes down, which can be tricky. So if you remember an outwards motion. Outwards. Then just the right hand to add on afterwards, which is simple once you've done the other bit. Of course, in reality for a beginner, the process is a bit longer than that. We have to be patient. When you're a beginner, your brain isn't used to controlling your hands in that way, but this is how we train it. And I find the trick for beginners really is to not think about two things happening at the same time. It's to think about a sequence of moves that your hands do together, which is why we learn it step by step. So this hand goes there, then this hand goes there, then they both go here, then they both go there. And when you get it all rolling together, it feels like you can do two things at once. And with more experience, you kind of do gain that awareness of two things happening at the same time. You'll learn new things that are similar to something else that you've picked apart like this, and it's going to be quicker and easier. For a beginner, the coordination of playing this would be difficult. So we break it down. The right hand goes by itself first on E flat, then we pull it back to E, and we connect that coming down with the left hand. Okay, well that's not so bad. So after that, our hand moves down to our thumb on G, and we hit the same left hand position again. So you're getting used to this hand moving down while this hand goes up and down to hit those notes. But it's just one maneuver. One maneuver to practice. When you've got it, move on. The next step, your left hand moves a thumb up to A and your right hand makes a leap. So we can think about an upwards movement together. So this will take a bit of practice to get that landing spot accurate. And then once you've got there, you just hit the same left hand again and move that there. One more step to add on. That requires your right hand coming back a bit and your left hand going up and down. You could practice that by itself. And after that, that's time for the left hand to move back down to the other position. Okay, this is the next practice method. Now, the idea of this one is to really take what we were saying before about having your understanding of where everything should fit and really ingraining that into your mind, into your fingers. So the basic idea is to practice what you're playing, and again you can do this in small sections or larger sections at different stages of learning. And as you're playing through, don't worry so much about the timing. So it's okay to leave gaps and pause whilst you're thinking about what happens next. This is another great way to reinforce and rehearse how things fit together. The main focus is completely on simply getting the notes in the right order when the hands go by themselves and when they connect together. It allows you to put all your focus on getting all the notes lined up in the right place without also having to worry about making the next beat. We can add that later on when you're ready, and that will go better when you do. The great thing about this is that you can keep coming back to it at any stage of learning. You can do a small chunk, you can do a bigger chunk, a whole section, the whole piece like this. You can use it as a warm-up refresher of what you're playing. Anytime you need it, it's useful. So if I was playing Minuet again, I'm going to leave pauses whilst I think about, okay, the right hand again, then the notes go together, then it's the right hand, and then it's together. Okay, then those two right hand notes. Then I leap up like this and then the hands connect. Then I've got this run up in the right hand. I'm going to move my left hand down when it reaches the top. And then the right hand jumps down again. So there was long gaps between the notes there and it was out of time, but that's fine because my main goal was to get those connections between the hand accurate. Then I'm really getting that clear in my mind where everything fits. If you can't get it accurate like that, then don't move on yet and try and play it with the correct timing and everything. So when you're really trying to get something flowing, hands together, it's so useful to think of the sound of both hands together at the same time as one thing. We really want to think about what we can call the composite sound or the composite rhythm and just keep that as one thing in our mind, how they sound when we put them together. For example, this. I'm thinking about both hands together. Boom, ba, ba, doo, da. Another really important thing when you're learning piano in general is when you're learning a section, and we are trying to get the rhythm and the timing coordinated as well now, is that you practice it at a really manageable tempo first. Don't try and play at full speed to start with. That will often lead to mistakes. You need to build up to that tempo. There's a lot to think about whilst we're playing. We need to think about what's coming up next ahead of time so we can move around smoothly. We can remember what to play and coordinate everything. So learning it slowly to start with gives us that bit of extra thinking time to think about and prepare for what's coming up next and just help us keep up mentally with everything that we're doing. You want to wait until you've got that control and you're not making mistakes, and then you can gradually build it up. Like with most things, consistency is key. We need to be, for one, disciplined about how we're approaching this practice method. If you gloss over and skip ahead, it won't work. If you're trying anything that's drastically too difficult, it's not going to work either. But the main thing I want to emphasize is that once you start practicing something like this and getting a feel for how your hands work together, we can't leave any big gaps between practice because we're trying to ingrain this stuff in our minds really. And every time you leave a long gap before your next practice session, that's slowly fading away. You're going to come back to it and it's going to feel difficult again. And that's going to be demotivating. We need to keep rehearsing and reinforcing what we're learning. And really, that's the only way that things are going to start to feel easier. I just want to briefly mention a couple of things that have really helped me over the years gain a better sense of hand independence in a bit more of a natural way. The first thing is improvisation over, to start with, a sort of straightforward and repetitive left hand pattern. You can do this in lots of styles. Typically people do this kind of thing in kind of like a blues style. But the other thing is learning some basic rhythm accompaniment style patterns. And these are great for the interaction between your hands. Usually has chords in our right hand, this kind of thing. I have a video you can watch next with 5 must-know beginner accompaniment patterns. Or there's more helpful videos including rhythm tips and things, linked below in the description. I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.